than any other modern democracy around the world. Let that sink in, because that's a little weird. What we are fighting for, ladies and gentlemen, is something more important than the people standing in this room. Even in that room, as important as I see all of you folks are. We are standing up for people outside of this room, outside of this city, and in many cases, even outside of this nation, whose lives are materially worse because of the plans that have been pursued by the United States federal government. A government that projects military hegemony around the world for no other good reason than to exert their own control in a way that does not align with your values and does not make us more safe, does not make us more wealthy. This is to the detriment not only of us and our friends and our family, but people who will never know your name. But it's up to us to represent them nonetheless. So, when you watch Chase today, it's okay if you fall in love. That's not a problem with me. But remember what it is that he represents. He represents a philosophy and a power that we need. We need it more than ever before. We need it for more important reasons than you and me. We need it to quite literally save what we have come to call the American experiment, which is on the ropes. So I think it's incumbent upon us to remember that, to remember it in more than one way. This is Chase Oliver.
First off, I do want to reiterate the thanks for y'all hosting this lovely event tonight. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out here. If I sound a little hoarse, it's because I was out at a parade yesterday with a bullhorn in my hand, speaking the message of liberty straight to the people. And that's where I have come from. I want to tell you a little bit about myself, a little bit about this campaign, and about how each and every one of us can make a difference in this election year. So I got my start being an activist in the streets. You know, I saw friends of mine going to go fight in wars, and I didn't want to see them go fight, and so I became an anti-war activist in the street. I put a bullhorn in my hand, my feet underneath me, and I went and fought as an activist. And that's where my roots are. I'm an activist candidate. I believe in energizing people and getting them out in the streets to make a difference in their community and their neighborhoods. And from that, because I was an anti-war activist and George Bush was the president during the wars, I became a Democrat. Now, I was a Democrat who liked guns, who didn't like taxes, but that's where I fell anyways. And I thought, this is my people. And we fought really hard in 2008. There was a nomination fight, and we had a candidate in our party that said things like, I'm going to end wars, I'm going to stop the drones, I'm going to talk to our enemies without precondition because diplomacy is better. And that was very attractive to me and other anti-war voters. What wasn't attractive is when that candidate won the White House, won the Nobel Prize, but didn't follow through on any of those promises with regards to how we treat our neighbors and the people around the world with our foreign policy. So I became a political independent. I declared my independence from the two-party system. And for a while, that's where I felt comfortable. I said, I'll vote for who I vote for. I'm just going to kind of float around here. And I came to a festival where the Libertarian Party of Georgia, by the way, if you don't know, I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a proud citizen of Atlanta. Thank you so much for having me down here in Texas. But I was at a festival in Atlanta, Georgia. That's where the Libertarian Party was there. And they waved me into the tent. They saw me looking. I was looking, was that librarian party? What is that? And someone waved me into the tent. And he said, what matters to you most? I bet there's a liberty solution for you. There's a solution that's rooted in human liberty for you. And I said, I'm tired of seeing us fight wars all over the world. We gotta have a better solution than that. We have to have diplomacy. That man said, welcome home. Welcome home to the ideas of liberty, the ideas of limited government, the idea of non-aggression, which is, I think, the golden rule. Anybody ever heard the rule, treat others as you want to be treated, right? I think every major faith and philosophy has that as a central core tenet of the message. Well, that's the message that I think we need to have as a government. Treat others as we want to be treated. Don't aggress against people because maybe they live differently than you, or have a different lifestyle, or whatever than you. Let them live and let live. We'll all live in peace together. And we can't do that when we have a government that is so big, so powerful, and so divided. We live in a hyper-partisan world, a hyper-polarized world, where people say, if you're not with me, you're against me. I don't think that way. I think that, broadly speaking, many of us have many things we agree on, the core values. empathy, respect for our neighbors, wanting to see businesses thrive in our communities, wanting to see our downtowns and our cities and villages filled up to the brim with happy people who are ready to trade with one another and engage with one another. That's the true American dream that our founders fought for, that our founders died for hundreds of years ago. And it's the American dream that more and more people are seeing slipping from their fingers. Now, I'm somebody who is 38 years old. I'm a tad bit younger than my opponents. But I also think that's allowed me to live an experience that many of them have not lived. I've grown up during the War on Terror years. I've gotten started in the economy right as the economy was upturned in 2008 and 2009, and we saw the housing crisis. It's my generation right now that all over the country and households is trying to raise their families as they feel the punch of inflation hitting them every year. And that inflation is caused by the debts and deficits we create as a government, by the fact that our government spends more than it takes in every year, and to make up for that difference, the Fed and the Treasury print trillions of dollars out of thin air. It devalues every dollar we have in our pocket or in our bank account or our business. It makes it harder for us to get along. It makes it harder for us to survive. I know what it's like when I go to the grocery store with the same amount of money and I see less and less filling up that cart. Millions of Americans know that struggle right here, right now. But we need to make sure they know that that struggle is caused by the fact that our government does too much, spends too much, and taxes us too much. So I'm somebody who wants to get our government back in line, back to balancing a budget. Now I know there are Democrats in the room who hear that and think that's scary, but who was the last president that balanced the budget? It was Bill Clinton. And when we did that, we had the largest growth of the middle class because we had a Congress that was telling him, you're going to balance the budget, you're going to cut the spending, and they held his feet to the fire. That's what we need in our politics today, is somebody who's going to say no more deficits and debt. Because frankly, the two men who are competing among the major parties that you saw in that debate the other night, they're not going to be around in 25 years to see the results of their reckless spending, of their reckless hyperpolarization, and of the partisanship they're creating with their politics. But you know who will? I will be living in that world. My nephews and nieces will be living in that world. Your kids and your grandkids will be living in that world. And I think it's time that we have a politics that seeks to something better for them, that talks about a better world that they can live in, a more free world, where they can harness their own destiny and make their own dreams come true. And we simply cannot do that with the current way we have a government set up. Part of that is by taking power out of the hands in Washington, D.C. and returning it to local governance. Now you may think that might be your mayor or your city council, but what is the most local government? Ladies and gentlemen, it's our own self-governance. It's our ability to govern ourselves with honor and respect for our neighbors, treating others as we want to be treated. That kind of responsibility is a huge one, and it's been taken from us by a government that deems it their responsibility to tell us how to live their lives, their responsibility to tell us how to run our business. I say no more. I'm a libertarian because I believe in the concepts of liberty. I believe in challenging the major political forces in this world to be better than what they are today. Challenge them to actually fight for real freedom, not just talking the talk but walking the walk, the way I did as an activist. I want to ask you guys, if there's any parents in the room here, please raise your hand. All right? I bet each and every parent in this room, you'll love your children. You would do anything for your children. You would fight and die for your children. My mom is 7 years old, and she would step in front of a train and make sure I lived. That's what's called unconditional love. That's why we need to return sovereignty of our communities back to each and every individual and to our families. Because you as a parent know the best challenges or the challenges that your children face. You know the triumphs that they've got to celebrate. And you certainly know what would be the best schools for them to go to, what would be the best for them to grow up in their lives with regards to medical decisions or anything else. So let's take the power out of the hands of bureaucrats in Austin or Washington, D.C. who don't know your kids. They don't know what makes them special. They don't know the challenge that they've had to overcome or the triumphs they get to celebrate. But you do. And so as a libertarian, I want to take power out of the hands of those central planners and return it back to those who should have it. Us as individuals, and those of us who are parents, to be able to raise our kids the way we want to raise them, with the values we want to have, and recognizing that there will be all different kinds of values and ways people raise their kids and their families, and that's okay. That is what makes America actually great. The fact that we have such a diverse way of thinking, a diverse way of living, and yet we still somehow manage to come together as one American family. That is what makes America great. And I want to keep pushing that message forward as a candidate for president. But the reason why we're here today is because I cannot do it alone. I'm going to travel all over this country speaking this message loud and clear. But I need the support. I need the support of people like you in this room, but even more, the people who are out there as our volunteers. We have thousands of volunteers ready to be activated. But we got to put the rat cards in their hand. We got to put the yard signs that they can nail down or they can stake down in the yards. We have to be able to spread our message in a way that reaches out into our communities. So I'm asking you here tonight to please think about supporting this campaign as donors. Putting your money where your mouth is so we can actually run this campaign in a way that's professional, that gets the message out and tells people they don't have to settle for less. They can actually find someone worth voting for. Because I don't want to be a protest vote. I don't want to be somebody who says, I don't like the other guy, so I'm just going to vote for Chase. No, I want to inspire people to be better than they are today. Inspire this country to be better than where it is right now. And I know if we come together, if you support this campaign, if you can help us put fuel in the tank, we can spread that message far and wide, and we can push the Overton window of political thinking towards liberty and away from authoritarianism. That's the kind of world I want to live in. That's the kind of world I want to see my nephews and nieces grow up in. That's the kind of world I want to see your kids and grandkids live in as time goes on. One where they're able to seize their own destiny and not be dependent upon a government telling them how to live, where to live, and what to do. So I encourage you to please check out this campaign. You saw my running mate, Ter Maat. He's an amazing backup for me, I'll tell you right now. When it comes to somebody that's going to be helping me along the campaign trail, I'm so proud and honored to have somebody with such experience and character of Ter Maat. And I am ready, willing, and able to put my feet underneath me, to knock on the doors, to be that activist candidate for president that brings new energy and new voters in the process. Who am I reaching out to? Young voters. Why? Because that's when most people get their political opinions formed. We did a poll amongst all my followers. We got over 2,000 respondents asking me, when did you first start calling yourself a libertarian? And most of them said between the ages of 18 and 30. That's the group we need to reach out to right now, because that's the group that does not see themselves represented on that debate stage the other night. They certainly don't see themselves in Joe Biden or Donald Trump. They can see themselves in me, because I'm somebody who's actually young enough to have lived much of their life experience, who knows what it's like to be starting out in an economy that is tumultuous, who knows what it's like to feel the sting of inflation on my wallet, because I've lived paycheck to paycheck. And so I think that's the kind of attitude, that's the kind of candidacy that can bring these new voters out. Make sure that they have a voice worth representing, because right now, about 4 in 10 people who can vote don't, because they just don't see anything worth voting for. With your help today, with your donations today, you can give those voters something worth voting for. You can be part of a sea change in Washington, D.C. and in communities all over this country to really bring liberty to the forefront and challenge the two parties to actually represent your values and your way of life, and not the way of life of Washington, D.C. So I urge you to get out and support this campaign. I urge you to get out and tell your friends and your neighbors that you don't have to settle for less anymore. You don't have to settle for, God, he got some good ideas, but man, his attitude and the way he goes about it is just entirely wrong. Or, hey man, this guy says he's one thing, but just really isn't up to snuff. He's just not there. That's what we're faced with at the top of our tickets right now, unless we embrace something different, and unless we inspire people to find a better choice. Help me inspire people to find something to vote for. Support this campaign, and let's put fuel in the engine for liberty. Now, I'm going to end this the same way that I do every speech. To each and every one of you who are in this room gathered here today, or who watch this on video or see this somewhere, I wish you the same thing that I wish for every single person. A life of peace, love, and liberty. Thank you.